When you picture a court jester, what comes to mind? Probably a person in a silly hat with bells, maybe juggling or doing some slapstick. You might imagine them telling simple jokes to make the king chuckle. That common image, while not entirely wrong, is actually far too simplistic. The reality of the jester's role in medieval and Renaissance courts was much more complex and nuanced. They weren't just there for cheap laughs. Jesters served a multifaceted purpose that went far beyond simple entertainment. They held a unique and often powerful position within the rigid court hierarchy. Their job was vital, intricate, and sometimes even dangerous. They were entertainers, yes, but also social commentators, trusted confidantes, and even political tools. Understanding the jester means looking past the cap and bells to see the sharp mind underneath. The jester's role was a fascinating blend of performance and function. They were expected to provide amusement and levity, acting as a release valve for courtly tension. This was crucial in a world defined by strict rules and high stakes. But their duties extended significantly beyond mere jokes and songs. They acted as keen social commentators, using humor to speak truths others dared not utter. They could be surprisingly insightful. Often, they served as confidants to the ruler, offering perspective free from the usual courtly agendas. And perhaps most surprisingly, they could be vital political tools, subtly influencing opinion or deflecting criticism. Humor was the key, but it unlocked many doors. At its core, the jester's job was to entertain. In a world of rigid social hierarchies and constant political intrigue, the court could be a very tense place. The jester offered a much-needed release valve. They used a variety of methods to bring levity. This included telling jokes, singing songs, performing physical comedy, and engaging in witty banter. Their presence helped to alleviate tension and create a more relaxed atmosphere. Entertainment was particularly important during feasts, celebrations, and other large social gatherings. The jester was often the life of the party, ensuring that the mood remained light and enjoyable for the ruler and their guests. Their ability to make people laugh was their foundation. It was the most visible part of their job, the reason they were initially brought into the court. But it was merely the entry point to their more complex duties. The laughter they generated served a deeper purpose. It disarmed people, opened ears, and created opportunities for influence. Without the ability to entertain, the jester couldn't perform their other, more subtle functions. Amusement was the necessary camouflage. It allowed them access and a certain level of tolerance from those in power. They could get away with things others couldn't, all under the guise of being a harmless fool. This was their greatest trick. So while the jokes and songs were the surface, they were essential tools. They built the jester's platform and gave them the unique license they needed to operate effectively within the court. Laughter was their currency. It bought them influence and protection. It made them indispensable in a way that no other courtier could replicate. The jester's humor was their shield and their sword. It allowed them to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics. They could deliver sharp observations wrapped in a joke, making them palatable. This was the true art of their primary function. Here's where the jester's role gets really interesting. They possessed a unique license to speak truth to power, a privilege almost unheard of for anyone else at court. They could criticize the king or other powerful members of the court. Crucially, they could often do this without fear of immediate, severe retribution. How did they manage this? Through the clever use of satire, riddles, and veiled insults. These methods allowed them to address sensitive issues and expose hypocrisy in a way that was both entertaining and insightful. Their observations offered valuable insights into the inner workings of the court and the state of the realm. They were the court's unofficial and often brutally honest critics. They could point out flaws in policy or character through a seemingly innocent jest, a riddle might contain a sharp commentary on a minister's incompetence. A song could mock the king's latest folly. Because it was delivered through humor, it was harder to punish directly. Was it a joke or was it criticism? The ambiguity was the jester's protection. This made them invaluable sources of information and perspective for the ruler. They could hear things and say things that others simply couldn't. They were the court's early warning system, sometimes. They could highlight discontent among the populace through a satirical performance. They could expose corruption with a well-timed quip. Their insights were often unfiltered and honest. While others flattered and schemed, the jester could offer a dose of reality. This required immense skill and a deep understanding of the court's dynamics. It was a high-wire act performed with a smile. Their commentary wasn't always appreciated by everyone, of course. Other courtiers likely resented their freedom of speech, but the ruler often valued the unvarnished truth, however uncomfortable. The jester's ability to comment on society and politics made them far more than just an entertainer. They were a vital, if informal, part of the court's checks and balances. They were the voice of inconvenient truth. Perhaps one of the most surprising aspects of the jester's job was their frequent role as a confidant to the king or queen. Their position outside the formal power structures gave them a unique advantage. They could observe and listen without the biases or agendas that plagued other courtiers. This allowed them to offer advice and provide a different perspective on state matters. They acted as a sounding board for the ruler's anxieties and concerns, offering a safe space for private thoughts. This close relationship fostered a level of trust and intimacy that was rare in the cutthroat world of the court. While ministers and advisors jockeyed for power and influence, the jester often had no such ambitions. Their loyalty was typically personal, tied directly to the ruler who employed them. This made them trustworthy in a way others were not. The ruler could speak freely to their jester, airing doubts or fears they couldn't share with their own family or advisors. The jester wasn't a rival for the throne or a competitor for political power. They were simply there to listen and perhaps offer a witty observation. This informal counsel could be incredibly valuable. The jester might notice things others missed or offer simple, common-sense perspectives obscured by courtly complexity. They saw the human side of the ruler. They were privy to secrets and vulnerabilities. This required immense discretion and loyalty on the jester's part. Betraying the ruler's trust would be the end of their privileged position, and likely much worse. The jester's role as confidant highlights the deeply personal connection they could form with their patron. It wasn't just a professional relationship. It could become a bond of genuine affection and trust. This was a testament to their character and skill. They weren't just entertaining the king. They were often befriending him. This friendship gave them influence far beyond their official title. It allowed them to shape the ruler's thinking in subtle ways. This intimate role is a powerful reminder that the jester was a complex individual capable of deep relationships and significant influence. They were more than just a funny face. They were a trusted friend. Beyond their roles as entertainer, commentator, and confidant, the jester could also be a deliberate political tool. Their very presence could be used to project a certain image of the ruler. A king with a jester might be seen as jovial, benevolent, or secure enough to tolerate playful criticism. Jesters could also be employed to subtly influence public opinion or deflect criticism away from the ruler. Their ability to disarm with humor and entertain made them valuable assets in navigating the complex political landscape of the court and the realm. They could deliver messages in a palatable way. Imagine a jester performing a skit that gently mocks a rival noble or a foreign power. This could shape courtly opinion without the king having to make a direct, potentially provocative statement. It was political propaganda delivered with a smile. If there was discontent about a royal policy, the jester might perform a routine that makes light of the situation or subtly justifies the decision. They could diffuse tension with laughter. Their humor could make difficult truths easier to swallow. They could also be used to test the waters for controversial ideas. A jester might float a sensitive topic in jest to gauge reactions before the king formally proposed it. It was a form of political reconnaissance. Their unique position allowed them to move between different factions within the court, gathering information. They weren't seen as a threat by everyone, making them effective, informal spies. They heard things others wouldn't say openly. The jester's political utility demonstrates just how integrated they were into the fabric of court life. They weren't just on the sidelines, they were often in the thick of it, albeit in their own unique way. They were political players in motley. Their skills in communication, observation, and performance were highly valuable in the strategic game of court politics. A clever jester could be worth more than a dozen conventional advisors. They were a secret weapon. This aspect of their role is perhaps the most surprising and highlights the depth of their function. The jester was not just a passive entertainer. They were an active participant in the political life of the court. So as we've seen, the job of a court jester was far, far more than just telling jokes. While entertainment was their foundation, it was merely the starting point for a much more complex and vital role. They were entertainers, yes, but also sharp social commentators who spoke truth to power. They were trusted confidants, offering counsel and a listening ear to the ruler. And they were often shrewd political strategists, subtly influencing events and opinions. Their unique position within the court allowed them to play a vital role in shaping both social and political dynamics. The jester is a fascinating historical figure, often underestimated in popular culture. They navigated a dangerous world with wit, intelligence, and a surprising amount of influence. They were the ultimate multitaskers of the medieval and Renaissance court. They remind us that power and influence can come in many forms, not just through titles and armies. Sometimes, the person with the most freedom to speak is the one wearing the silly hat. The jester was a master of survival and influence, a truly remarkable historical character.